This show is part of OnePlace, a daily network of focused briefings across the stories people follow most.
Welcome to our daily roundup. We are diving into a heavy set of cases today, ranging from tragic family betrayals to shocking courtroom revelations that have captured the nation's attention this week.
A father's obsession leads to a deadly family tragedy.
A fire captain kills over a movie character's portrayal.
Heartbreaking audio reveals a young girl's final terrifying moments.
A mother's search history reveals a blueprint for murder.
A convicted killer expresses regret over his mother's request.
A midwife faces charges for a newborn's permanent injuries.
Thanksgiving dinner turns fatal after a mother poisons wine.
A drunk driver dances after hitting a sidewalk crowd.
Starting with our first story, the story of Katie Pladel is one of the most disturbing cases of family betrayal in recent memory. It began as a hopeful reunion when 18-year-old Katie sought out her biological parents, Stephen and Alyssa Pladel, who had given her up for adoption as an infant. However, the situation quickly spiraled into a nightmare. Stephen Pladel began a sexual relationship with his biological daughter shortly after she moved in. This illicit bond led to a pregnancy and a secret marriage after Stephen and Alyssa divorced. The legal system eventually intervened, leading to their arrests for incest. The tragedy peaked when Katie tried to end the relationship and move away. In a fit of rage, Stephen killed their infant son before tracking down Katie and her adoptive father, Tony Fusco, and murdering them both before taking his own life.
This case has resurfaced in the public eye due to a Lifetime movie titled Husband, Father, Killer, the Alyssa Pladel story, which is now streaming. It highlights the devastating impact on Alyssa, who originally suspected Stephen of abuse years earlier when they first gave Katie up for adoption. The details are harrowing, especially considering Katie was described by her adoptive family as a talented artist and a normal teenager who just wanted to know her roots. Her uncle recalled her as a happy girl nicknamed Pac-Man because she loved to eat. The transition from a joyful reunion to a triple murder-suicide is a stark reminder of the dangers of predatory behavior within families. The fact that Stephen was able to manipulate his own daughter into such a destructive situation remains a chilling focal point for investigators and the public alike.
Next up, in California, a former Cal Fire captain named Darren McFarland has been sentenced to consecutive life terms for a truly senseless double murder. The incident occurred during what should have been a quiet family night watching the movie Fireproof. McFarland, who was reportedly obsessed with his professional image, became enraged by the film's portrayal of a firefighter who was selfish in his marriage. He demanded that his fiancée, Marissa Devoti Lessa, agree that the wife in the movie was the one at fault. When she refused and the argument escalated, McFarland strangled her. She managed to break free and tried to call for help, but McFarland, fearing for his career, retrieved a loaded firearm. He then shot Marissa and her 7-year-old son, Josiah, in front of Marissa's 9-year-old daughter. The brutality of the act over a fictional movie character is staggering.
The sentencing hearing was incredibly emotional, featuring a letter from the surviving 9-year-old girl who witnessed the entire event. Judge Mark Ralphs did not hold back, ordering 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus additional decades of time. Prosecutors emphasized that McFarland's ego and concern for his reputation drove him to commit these murders rather than face the consequences of a domestic violence report. It is a tragic irony that a man whose job was to save lives ended up taking them because he couldn't handle a critique of his profession on screen. The community and the victims' families are left grappling with the loss of a young mother and her child. This case serves as a grim example of how quickly domestic disputes can turn fatal when a perpetrator prioritizes their status over human life.
Now let's shift to the sentencing trial of Tanner Horner has brought forth some of the most gut-wrenching evidence ever heard in a courtroom. Jurors were moved to tears as they listened to audio captured from inside Horner's FedEx delivery truck during the final moments of 7-year-old Athena Strand. The footage showed Horner picking up the young girl after delivering a package to her home. In the audio, Athena can be heard asking if he is a kidnapper and where they are going. Horner's chilling response was simply that it didn't matter. As he drove, the song Jingle Bell Rock played on the radio, creating a haunting contrast to the sounds of Athena screaming and banging on the interior of the truck. Horner eventually told her they were going to hang out, but the situation turned violent when he realized he couldn't let her go without risking his job.
The details of the assault and subsequent murder are almost too much to bear. Horner admitted to strangling the girl and dumping her body in the Trinity River. What makes this even more disturbing is that the very next day, while the community was desperately searching for Athena, Horner was back on his route making deliveries as if nothing had happened. The judge actually warned people to leave the courtroom before the audio was played because of its graphic nature, and Athena's parents chose to step out. This case has sparked massive outrage regarding the vetting processes for delivery drivers and the safety of children in their own yards. As the jury deliberates on the sentencing, the focus remains on the sheer terror Athena faced and the cold, calculated actions Horner took to cover up what started as a relatively minor accidental hit with his vehicle.
Moving on to, in the trial of Tracy Grist, prosecutors have unveiled a digital trail that suggests a calculated obsession with a famous murder-for-hire case. Grist is accused of orchestrating the murder of her son-in-law, Matthew Rastelli. Evidence presented in court shows that Grist's search history was filled with inquiries about the Adelson family, who were famously convicted in the Dan Markel murder plot. She specifically looked into Wendy Adelson and the details of Donna Adelson's court hearings. Prosecutors argue that Grist wasn't just a curious observer of true crime, she was using the Adelson case as a literal blueprint for her own family's actions. By studying how the Adelsons attempted to navigate the legal system and the specifics of their plot, Grist allegedly hoped to avoid the same mistakes while achieving a similar goal of removing a family member she deemed problematic.
This digital evidence is a cornerstone of the state's argument that Grist was the mastermind behind the shooting, while her son, Kevin Ellis, was the one who actually pulled the trigger and has already been convicted. The prosecution wants to prove that he was merely an instrument of his mother's will. The search history includes very specific details, such as the ages of the victim's children and the timing of legal proceedings, which mirrors the complexities of the Markel case. It paints a picture of a woman who was deeply immersed in the mechanics of a professional hit. This revelation has shifted the focus of the trial from a simple act of violence to a sophisticated conspiracy. The defense will have a difficult time explaining away such a targeted and extensive interest in a specific murder-for-hire case, right before a similar crime occurred in her own family.
Next we have, continuing with the same family tragedy, the jury recently heard a recorded conversation between Kevin Ellis and his sister that took place after his conviction. In the recording, Ellis expresses profound regret for his role in the murder of Matthew Rastelli. He recounts a specific moment where he asked his mother, Tracy Grist, if she was absolutely certain she wanted to go through with the plan to kill Rastelli. According to Ellis, her answer was a definitive yes. This testimony is crucial because it directly implicates Grist as the driving force behind the conspiracy. Ellis told his sister, "I should have said no," a sentiment that highlights the tragic influence a parent can have over their child. His sister's response was equally telling, as she told him that their mother should never have put him in that position or asked such a thing of him.
This piece of evidence humanizes the conflict within the family, while reinforcing the prosecution's narrative of Grist as a manipulative figure. Ellis's admission of guilt and his regret suggest that he felt pressured by maternal loyalty to commit a capital crime. For the jury, hearing the raw emotion in his voice as he speaks to his sister provides a different perspective than the cold facts of the search history. It suggests a family dynamic where Grist held significant power and used it to orchestrate a fatal outcome. The defense may try to argue that Ellis is simply trying to shift blame, now that he is facing a long prison sentence, but the consistency of the narrative between his private conversations and the digital evidence is compelling. It leaves the jury to decide if Grist is truly the architect of this tragedy, or if Ellis is acting alone.
Now to, a Florida midwife is under fire following a home birth that resulted in catastrophic, permanent injuries to a newborn. Sisley Maria Auer is accused by the Florida Department of Health of using excessive and aggressive force during the delivery of Dylan Davis in November 2021, when the labor became complicated by shoulder dystocia, a situation where the baby's shoulders get stuck. Auer allegedly failed to use standard medical maneuvers to resolve the issue. Instead, the complaint states she forcibly and continuously pulled on the infant's head and neck with both hands. This action resulted in the baby's nerves being literally torn from his spinal cord, a condition known as a brachial plexus injury. Despite multiple surgeries, the child is expected to live with severe deficits in his arm for the rest of his life, a heartbreaking outcome for what should have been a joyous occasion.
The allegations against Auer go beyond just the physical handling of the birth. The administrative complaint also claims she instructed the mother to push during the shoulder dystocia, which is strictly against safety protocols as it can worsen the injury. Furthermore, the delivery took place in a birthing pool. An hour reportedly allowed the baby's head to go back underwater after he had already gasped for air, risking aspiration. There are also serious concerns regarding her licensing and insurance, with officials alleging she dodged mandatory requirements. This case has reignited the debate over the safety and regulation of home births and the qualifications of midwives. For the family of Dylan Davis, the focus is on the lifelong care their son will now require. The Department of Health is seeking to hold Auer accountable for what they describe as a series of unprofessional and dangerous choices.
Next up, a North Carolina woman, Gudrun Casper Leinenkugel, is facing murder charges after a Thanksgiving dinner turned deadly. Authorities allege that she poisoned a bottle of wine with acetonitrile, a toxic chemical that the body converts into cyanide. Her 32-year-old daughter, Leila Livis, died the day after the dinner. Two others, another daughter and her boyfriend, also fell ill after drinking the wine. The boyfriend's condition was particularly dire, as he was hospitalized with cyanide levels 5 times the lethal limit. When questioned, Casper Leinenkugel attempted to blame the incident on children playing with chemicals in a barn, or the wine being stored near rat poison in a closet. However, investigators found a bottle of the specific chemical used in the poisoning inside her residence, leading to her arrest for first-degree murder and attempted murder.
The details of this case are chilling, especially the choice of a holiday gathering to carry out such an act. Acetonitrile is a solvent used in various industrial applications, and its delayed toxicity means the victims didn't realize they were in danger until hours later when they began experiencing flu-like symptoms. The surviving daughter only had a few sips, which likely saved her life. Prosecutors are painting a picture of a woman who willfully distributed a lethal substance to her own family members. The defense's claim that it was an accidental contamination seems increasingly thin as more details about the storage of the chemicals and the defendant's statements come to light. This tragedy has left a family shattered and a community in shock, as they struggle to understand why a mother would target her own children during a time meant for gratitude and celebration.
Finally, in Lexington, Kentucky, a 20-year-old woman named Cadence Carpenter is facing multiple charges after a chaotic night in a downtown parking lot. Police say Carpenter, who was driving under the influence, drove her car over a curb and into a crowd of people. Video of the incident shows the vehicle reversing and then accelerating into the group, knocking several people to the ground. What happened next was perhaps the most bizarre part of the evening. After the collision, as someone was filming her, Carpenter allegedly began dancing for the camera. Officers who arrested her noted that she smelled of alcohol, had slurred speech, and possessed a fake ID. The victims reported various injuries, including head and leg trauma, with some even fearing they might be paralyzed. It was a night of reckless behavior that could have easily resulted in multiple fatalities.
Carpenter's defense attorney is offering a different perspective, claiming that his client was being surrounded and punched by the crowd before she drove over the curb. He also alleged that someone in the group appeared to have a gun, suggesting that Carpenter was acting out of fear and trying to escape a dangerous situation. However, the police officer who testified stated she only saw the moments where the car hit the pedestrians and did not witness any prior assault. The case is now moving to a grand jury, which will have to weigh the video evidence and witness testimonies against the defense's claims of self-defense. Regardless of the intent, the image of a driver dancing after such a violent encounter has left a lasting impression on the public. The legal proceedings will determine if her actions were a desperate escape or a result of extreme impairment.
That concludes our roundup for today. Thank you for joining us for these important updates. Be sure to follow the show to stay informed on the stories we follow most every day.